will not be able to stay home, brother. You will not be able to plug in, turn on, and cop out. You will not be able to lose yourself on Skag and skip out for beer during commercials because the revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution will not be brought to you by Xerox in 4 parts without commercial interruptions. The revolution will not show you pictures of Nixon blowing a bugle and leading a charge by John Mitchell, General Abrams, and Mendel Rivers.
Good morning. First, let me say that I am honored and humbled to be here in this moment. I'm almost kind of speechless. This is a very surreal moment for me, but I'm so very thankful. I'm thankful for you. I'm thankful for your teachings, your words, your fearlessness, your contributions to our culture. So with that said, I am humbled to be able to sit and have a very real, open, and honest conversation with you. Welcome, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan.
Thank you very much. I'm honored myself to be a part of your show.
Thank you.
And as we prayed before we entered this conversation,
yes,
my prayer is also that the words of our mouth and the meditation of our hearts will be acceptable in the sight of God, because the minds of our listeners are sacred. And the only thing that the human mind should feed on is truth. So I pray that this will be 1 hour filled with truth and the power that the truth conveys.
As I'm sure it will. So justice or else? We are getting ready to come up on the 20-year anniversary of the Million Man March, 10-10-15. And I'm curious as to what the or else means.
Whenever God sends a prophet into the world to bring both guidance and warning, in the guidance and the warning is contained a threat. So when the wicked do not respond properly to the guidance that is given and the warning that is given to move away from the wrath of God, then the threat becomes their destruction. So as it was in the days of Noah, when the minds of the people were continually to do evil, Noah warned them. And the warning continued for almost 150 years. And the people went on with their lives. And as both the Bible and especially the Bible and the Quran says, they were drinking, they were partying, they were giving in marriage. They were doing those things that they were doing while they continued to do evil. So in that hour, the threat came to pass, and God killed them all, except those few that got in the ark. And so it was in this dual city of Sodom and Gomorrah, that is a real city in Palestine. And the people were engaged in an action that is considered an abomination. And God sent Lot through Abraham to warn them that their behavior was unacceptable to God. And they were offered a chance to change, and they did not. So 2 angels entered Sodom. They were guests in the house of the prophet Lot. And the wicked came to the house of Lot seeking to have sex with the angels who were men. And Lot offered them his 2 daughters, and they didn't want the daughters. They wanted the men. And so death came. The cities were overturned. Everyone was killed except Lot and his family, his 2 daughters. And his wife was of those ordained to be left behind. Those things are put in the Bible and Quran as signs and warnings, because in the Bible it says, as it was in the days of Noah, as it was in the days of Lot in Sodom and Gomorrah, so shall it be at the coming of the Son of Man. So yes, what good is it to say justice and there's no threat? We don't have time to play with the principle of justice. Justice is a principle of fair dealing. We have never been dealt fairly since our fathers set the soles of their feet in the Western Hemisphere. Neither have our indigenous brothers and sisters called Native Americans. They haven't been dealt with fairly. Neither have the Mexicans and so many others. So justice is what we want. And we're not playing with the government of the United States of America. We are demanding what God demands of us. And there definitely is an or else from us. But the biggest or else comes from God Himself.
You speak of justice. Clearly, we don't know what that is as long as we've been here. What does that look like? What does that feel like? Is that even obtainable?
You know, that's a great question.
I have there's a lot going on in my mind, Minister.
It's all right. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, justice is a principle of fair dealing. Justice is the law that distinguishes between right and wrong. But he also said, justice is a weapon that God will use in the day of judgment. He said, if justice were in the world, there would not need to be a judgment. But since the world is run by a satanic mind, and justice is not the order of the day, justice is denied. And as Martin Luther King said, the universal arc of justice, or the arc of the universe, bends toward justice. So even if I can't get justice in the courts of America, which are run by white supremacists, that is not the court that ultimately has justice in its grip. So Thomas Jefferson said, I tremble for my country when I reflect that God is just and His justice cannot sleep forever. So what is it? It's what you sow. You have to reap it. That law is at work every single day of our lives. If the courts don't do their job, the law of justice contained in the universe will do that job. No man or woman can escape the consequences of their actions. So in the Quran, there's a section that says every deed has its consequence. And this is the day when the God of justice will give to every man, every woman, every nation what that nation has earned. And so the Quran says you will see every nation bowing down before its book. Everything is written. And the evil of America, a great evil that America has done to the indigenous people, a great evil America has done to the blacks who didn't come here on the Nina, the Pinta, or the Santa Maria, but the transatlantic slave trade is a crime that they have not paid for yet, but this is reaping time. I'm happy to announce to the enemies of justice, your time has come. And you will not escape the wrath of God. And the sad thing is, when Thomas Jefferson said he trembles, he was in present time trembling for his people in a future time. Nobody escapes. So the children of Jefferson today that have lived deliciously based upon what he did, and the evil of what he did, and the justice that he didn't do, but he knew one day they would have to pay. And I am here to warn America, this is that time, and you will pay justice or else. And since you didn't do justice, the or else is now present in America and in the world. This world's time is up.
Do you think white people can help aid in the fight for justice, our generation, the younger people, in a very compassionate and genuine way, and not out of a sense of guilt? This generation speaking.
Well, let's deal with the principle of justice. The scripture says, set up slaughter for the children. Even to the third and fourth generation of them that hate me. You can't get away just because you're white and young from the evil of your parents, unless you are willing to do what you made O.J. Simpson do. He won in the court. The court said he was not guilty. But they went back in civil court and found him responsible. Young white people, you didn't do this, but you're in a place of benefit now because of what your fathers did. I like that movie, The Godfather, because in the end, when Michael was in church at the christening of his sister's child, the priest asked him, Michael, do you believe in God? He said yes. And then, Michael, do you renounce Satan and all his works, boy? And Michael said, I do, but at the same time, he was killing all the members of the 5 families. See, justice, you can't play with it. The hearts of black people want to include white people in the quest of justice. And that's your good heart. But white people now have to earn a pass. And the only way they can earn a pass from what their fathers have done is to accept the responsibility that they're in the good position that they're in because of what was done to us and to the native people of this hemisphere. So my question to you for them is, are you willing to accept responsibility and help in the cause of justice for those who have been deprived, that's your past. But if you prove to be just like your fathers, then prepare slaughter for the children, for the evil of their fathers, even to the fourth and third and fourth generation of them that hate me. Nobody gets a pass today except by the mercy of God. Not you, not I, not your mother, not your father. Everybody has to give an account for how you lived your life. So today, whatever you put out, expect it back. This is the time of judgment and justice. And I thank God for such a horrible hour for the wicked, but a great hour for those of us who have suffered at their hands.
You've lived through so many decades and you've been fighting for justice. And you've been fighting for the equality of Black, brown people. Did you ever think that we would still be here? Some people feel, and you know, I talked to my father, and he's just like, oh, you don't know what it's like. You know, you young kids got it good. And it's almost like this sense of, it is a thing of a past. But for me and my generation, I feel like we're still dealing with it in a very real way. Does it feel different for you because you were there fighting and you're here now fighting?
How were we fighting? We were fighting for simple things. Not really for justice. To be accepted by the white man in his places of business, where we were rejected. We couldn't be buried in a cemetery with them. We couldn't go to a toilet that said white, you know. But we wanted to change that. That's not justice. That's simple dignity of a fellow human being. That's not justice. And we had to die to integrate a toilet. We had to die to integrate a lunch counter. We had to kneel down and pray. That's not justice. We never got justice. Even the simple dignity of spending our money with our former slave masters and their children broke us, not them. Integration never helped us, it helped them, because our consumer dollars went more to them than to ourselves. When your father was growing up, if he grew up in the South, we had to spend our money with ourselves because white folk didn't want our dollars in their stores. Boy, that's something. So we had our own black baseball teams. You may not remember, but your dad does. We had our own little things. All of a sudden, Jackie Robinson. Do you think the white man really wanted Jackie, except that Jackie would bring black people to the white ballpark and they would be wealthy while black people got a little bit of money with an elastic band on it from white people? That they give you money and take it right back because you don't know how to use your wealth? Because you've never been taught? No, we wasn't fighting for justice. We wanted to be close to our former slave masters. We wanted to be accepted by them. And so when it looked like they accepted us with this hypocritical trick of integration, we end up right where we are right now, still crying out for justice. You said it yourself. You didn't know what justice was. Justice ain't going to a toilet with a white man. Justice is not going to school sitting with white children. Justice is getting the knowledge that will allow you to provide for yourself. They never wanted you to have that kind of knowledge. So here we are. But the fight is coming to an end. We're in the championship rounds now. And we will win. Real justice comes from God, because a white man don't have it in him to give it.
In terms of police brutality, a report, I just read an article earlier this week that said that the races that are most likely to be killed by police officers are, of course, African Americans and Native Americans at a larger rate because they make up smaller of the population. How important is it to make sure that we are unified between the Black community, the Native American community, and the Latino community as well in this fight?
The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, "Our unity is more powerful than the acquisition of a hydrogen or atomic bomb." We've waded in, prayed in, cried in, crawled in. We've marched, we've sat down and done things that remove dignity from us just to be accepted. We've never tried unity. And even though we talk unity, we don't know what that is. But the enemy does. Because every time we try to unite, he comes in between it to keep us weak so that we can't get the things that we should get that God has asked for us. Freedom, justice, equality. We could get it overnight if we were united. So that's our fight. Our fight today is to unify the black man first. Because you can't get unity with the brown if you're not unified among yourself. You can't get unity with the red if you're not unified among yourself. Charity starts with self and home. Then it spreads abroad. So yes, we want unity with the brown. We want unity with the red. We want unity with those who struggle like we struggle. But the first unity is with self. So Jesus said this, "I give you a commandment this day." Moses gave 10. Jesus gave 2. But the 2 commandments that Jesus gave were more powerful than the 10 that Moses gave. So the scripture says, Jesus said, "Love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength." Let's stop there for a minute. See, if I love God, man, he's worthy to be loved. He's not worthy to be loved with something of myself, because myself is what he gave me. I owe him all. So don't ask me to pledge allegiance to a flag that hasn't done nothing for me. I give my allegiance to God, who gave me life, who gave me my gift, who gave me eyes to see and ears to hear and a tongue to speak and hands to form what comes as a vision in my mind. Who gives gifts better than God? So I have nothing for a flag that does nothing for me. I owe it all to God. And the second commandment, he said, is like unto the first. Love your neighbor as who? Yourself. One guy was listening to Jesus, and he thought he would be smart, and he asked Jesus a question. Well, who is my neighbor? That's a good question. Because now we're defining who is the neighbor that we should love as ourselves. That's a big thing. Black folk don't know who to love. And you don't know who to love if you don't first love God and then love yourself. How can you love what you don't know? You don't know yourself. And the enemy made sure that we would never know the reality of who we are. Yeah. So Jesus said, well, he didn't answer the man directly. He gave him a parable. A man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and on the way he fell among thieves, who hit him in his head and robbed him of his raiment and left him half dead in the road. A priest walked by. Surely we should love the priest, but he walked by on the other side. Then a Levite came. And a Levite looked at the poor man laying there and did nothing. Well, the priest wasn't neighborly. The Levite wasn't neighborly. But then along came the Good Samaritan, who saw the man laying in the road, poured oil in his wound, bound up his wound, took him to an innkeeper and said, Innkeeper, I'm giving you 2 pence. If it's more than what I've given you on my return, I'll take care of the bill. Which one of these did the neighborly thing? See, the church has not been our friend. That's why Pope Francis is down in South America. He's back in Rome now. But he asked Ecuador, Bolivia, Uruguay, would you forgive the church? Forgive the church? I thought the church represented Jesus. Did Jesus do anything wrong to the people of Bolivia, to the people of Uruguay, to the people of Ecuador? Jesus is not guilty, but the church is guilty of the slaughter of the indigenous people of this hemisphere. So the Pope asked for forgiveness. But they haven't done the neighborly thing. White America, you've been neighborly to us? Man, if the church has failed, and it really has failed now. So God comes out of the shadows to help us come up out of this condition. So I'm in love with God. He has no equal, no partner. And I ain't sharing my love for God with an enemy that don't deserve my love. It's my people who've been victimized that deserve my love and deserve the love of God. And it is out of that love that I've worked for 60 years. And I'm not tired. And I know I'll be the winner in the end, living or dead. Yeah, I guess I answered that question.
You did. You speak in terms of unifying within us first. I'm curious as to how much does financial wealth contribute to that unifying. And your thoughts on sovereignty, if that is something that will also gain us unity within our culture first as well.
Wealth, of course, can help. But that was the problem with the children of Israel under Pharaoh. They were so enamored by the wealth of Pharaoh, they didn't want to hear God calling them out of Egypt, because he wanted to give them a land so that they could have an independent, sovereign existence under the guidance of God. So, man, they were so fascinated by the wealth of Pharaoh, Moses had to pray to God to destroy the wealth of Pharaoh so that the children of Israel wouldn't be dazzled by Pharaoh's wealth and finally accept God's command to come out of her so that God may make them into the greatest nation that had ever existed. So it is today. We're fascinated by America's wealth, the bling bling, if you will. So many of us think that when we sing a song calling our women female dogs and referring to them as prostitutes and talking about our bust a cap in you and all this vile filth, and the white man gives us money for saying that. You can't talk about them like that, but you can talk about your own like that. That's what makes me sick when I hear you sick Negroes talking about how terrible it is to hate. How terrible it is. We shouldn't hate. Well, if it's so bad that we shouldn't hate, somebody should come in the black community and teach us how to love ourselves and love one another. Then we wouldn't be going to the hospital and to the morgue every weekend and only find a spirit to march when the same killer who has killed us ever since we've been here kills us again. Then we'll march. We should have been marching to stop the violence that we commit against ourselves. So the real question is, if hate is bad, then tell the white man, come into the black community and teach us like Martin taught us to love you. You ought to come in and stop the acts of violence that you do. And somebody got to turn that nonviolence around and teach us nonviolent love toward each other. Look how easy it is for our beloved people to forgive the white man. Kill 9 people. And how easy it was for us to say, I forgive. But that's the way we are. That's the way we've been taught and made. But the question that white folk gotta ask, is the God of justice gonna forgive? Right now, somebody's on the television over the 2 little white boys that was sailing and got lost. And they've raised $130,000, I think, to help find those 2 young boys. But what's that boy name? The white boy that killed 9 of us in Charleston.
Oh, Dylan. Yeah, Dylan Roof.
Roof. They've raised over $4 million for him to make sure he gets a fair trial. Stop it. No, you don't want a fair trial. You raised $4 million so he could get off.
Right.
Like the rest of your brothers do when they kill us. I'm sorry. Your time has come. Your court system is collapsing. We can't find justice in you. So the God of justice is on scene today, and he threatens you with absolute death. He threatens you to take your country from you. It's written in your Bible. Go read it. He takes the kingdom from whom he pleases, and he gives it to whom he pleases. Well, I hope we recognize that it pleases him that we have some of this earth that we can call our own. Now, white folks, you'll have a chance to give us what we demand, and I'm sure you'll act by us like you do by everything you give us. You find a way to take it back. You promised us 40 acres and a mule. We haven't got that yet. You passed the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. You haven't enforced none of them. You passed the voting rights bill, and we were so happy because we could vote now. And then the Supreme Court reversed it recently, the protection clause of it. What do we have that you gave us that you didn't find a way in the skill of deceitful language to take it back? We can't trust your words. We trust the God and the will of God in his word. Justice is coming. Oh, the Bible calls it in a great and dreadful day of the Lord. Great for the righteous, but dreadful for the wicked. That's the time we've arrived at. So we're going to get some sovereignty. We're going to get some land because that's what God has promised. Yes. I think I answered that. I hope I did.
Did.
Riches and sovereignty, right?
Yes.
Yes.
As a woman, as a mother, speaking, with my sisters, how can we help? What is required of us?
Ooh, that's so big. Our women are the key. A nation is taken down through the woman, and a nation goes up through the woman. You mean everything to our struggle. And the sad thing about when a conquering army comes to a nation to fight for whatever that nation has in terms of land or mineral wealth, when the conquering army conquers the army of that nation, they have conquered the men of that nation, and the prize to the conqueror is the woman. They have access to the material wealth of that country. They have access to the real wealth of that country, which is the woman. The Honorable Elijah Muhammad said, your woman is like your field through which you produce your future. Any farmer that produces a crop, he works to destroy the enemies of that crop. You are our earth. And from you, every good thing that we've ever produced came from you. And the sad thing about it, when you love your black man and you marry him, because in him you find someone that you are attracted to, that you believe will be a good man for you, only to find, as time goes on, he's not all that you thought he should be. And nature has put in you a demand. And nature has put in us a demand on you. Your demand has to be met before our demand from you can be met. The Quran, in the 4th chapter, the 1st verse says, keep your duty to Allah as it ought to be kept. Wow. Allah, who created you from a single essence And he created your mate of the same. And he put in you a demand that you make on each other. Your nature demands something from a man, and a man's nature demands something from you. You cannot expect the woman to give you what you demand if you, in the first place, don't give her what her nature demands. Her nature demands a man to maintain, to uplift, to help, to guide, to be a provider for and a protector of. That's her nature. And what you get from her in return for being a man is what God put in every woman. The consolation, the care, the love that makes a man willing to go out and work the field or fight the enemy to come back home. To be loved, to be nurtured again by the brilliant mind of a woman that was not just created for pleasure, but she's your second self. And in her is the same thing that's in you from God. And so when you get married, sometimes you have your first child in your husband. That's very disappointing to hear. But Elijah Muhammad set up a class. He knew we were not the men that we could be. Every man out there is capable of satisfying the woman that married him. But she has to know now how to help him to be the great man that he's born to be. And so our women have a double job on themselves. They have to rear the children that come from a marriage, but they also have to help that man to be what they hoped he would be. And that's where we run out of knowledge. And that's why men run from women today into the arms of another man. Oh, it's sad. I'm sorry. I don't mean to hurt the feelings of our brothers and sisters who are listening. I love you all, and I know that no man playing a woman can be a woman. And no woman playing a man can be a man. When the real thing comes along, you have to take your seat. And that's why the world is so upset, because the men are broken. We are broken. And you already have been the booty of the conqueror. We couldn't tell the conqueror, you can't sleep with my woman. In the South, the sheriff could come to the house of a beautiful child of a black man and woman and tell the man, send your daughter out to me. And he would take that young girl and do with her what he pleased and send her back like a piece of garbage. And we suffered that kind of thing. And what do you think that did to a woman? That man was so weak that the white man could come and demand his daughter. And then today, some of us are so doggone weak and wicked, we'll sleep with our daughters. You can't even bring a beautiful girl into the world. And as a woman, it's your duty to protect your child. Not let any man, even if it's your father or the father, and I've seen fathers, boy, sleep with their daughters, make them pregnant, and the woman knows that this is going on, and she don't have the courage to stand up for the life of her child. This is what we confront all the time. That's why we need to be separated from this enemy, so that the disease of having been a slave can be healed. Yeah. We need to be quarantined for a while to let God work on us. As long as you're with the enemy, you're going to continue to be the type of human being that he made you, because he made you into himself. Come out of her, my people, the scripture says. And even Dr. King in the last year of his life said, I can see why separation is necessary for a time. Come up with the measles, the mumps, you can't just walk around. They put a sign on your door in the old days, you're quarantined so your health can be restored. Elijah Muhammad said it's better to teach separation than to teach prayer. There's nothing more powerful than prayer, but praying in the house of the enemy and living the life of the enemy, you still victimized as a praying slave, a praying freak. So we can continue to pray, because prayer is the greatest force to restrain us from the doing of evil. But as long as you stay in the cesspool that made you sick, all your prayers will never make you righteous. We got to leave him and go into a land of our own where we can be healed and cleansed and made whole again, that God may use us for his glory. Excuse me, my dear sister Monet.
Yes.
I'm full. And the passion that I have is a part of my being at this time, because we're getting closer and closer to a time and there's no turning back. America is under divine judgment, and so are we. So we can't play around with the truth. We can't use sweet words when it demands straight talk. And who will speak today? A cowardly Muslim that says, I represent the prophet? You're a liar. If you represented the prophet, you would be sending out a warning to a government as low down as the government in which you find refuge for yourself. Cowardly Christians go along to get along. Pastors that are weak. Our children in the street dying, and you in the church with the saved, you in the mosque with the so-called saved, when the problem is in the streets. Yes, that's where Jesus was. Yes. That's where Muhammad was. He wasn't in the mosque praying all the time. The man was out there teaching people, transforming their lives. That's the work of Jesus, not being in a safe place. We got a lot of work to do, my sister. And I'm honored to be on this show with you as we're coming close to the end of our time together. But I heard the beauty of your prayer as you prayed. You prayed for yourself and you prayed for me, that this would be a meaningful hour of discourse, dialogue. And I hope that I have satisfied your questions, and maybe you have one or two more before our time ends?
I do. I do. What does your day look like? Like, I'm just curious, like what happens when you wake up in the morning? What are you doing throughout the course of your day? Do you watch television? Do you get to have a moment where you're in your backyard and you have a quiet time? Are you reading books? Like, what does that day look like? An average day.
I really don't spend a lot of time reading books. Most of them are 90% false and 10% truth. I don't have time to sift through madness. I read the creation of my God. The Quran says, in everything that Allah created, in it, there's a lesson for man if man would be mindful. You're in a book where nothing in it is false. Why should I waste time with your trying to be wise? If God is my teacher, let me feed from the truth. I feed from the words of God. I feed from the creation of God. So when I get up and say my prayers, I read the Quran or read the Bible, I go out and thank God for being able to live on a farm. And I ride in a little buggy and I look at the roses, and when I see they're about to bud, I stop and look at what God created. I don't hear sirens. I don't look at these concrete jungles. I want to feed on God. That's where my peace comes from. I'm not saying I'm a holy man or nothing like that. I just feel good being enveloped by what God has created. What does my day look like? Ask those around me.
I was told a lot of work.
And what is my work? See, my work is teaching. I've been taught by a master. I didn't graduate from college. I finished my 3rd year, and my little girlfriend got pregnant, and I didn't want to stay for the 4th year because I wanted to be a man. She's pregnant, I had to take care of her, and whatever that offspring was that she would bring into this world, so I left my college. She wanted me to continue. My mother wanted me to continue. But I always wanted to be a man. I'm not the type of man that let a woman do for me, except what she's required to do in a marriage relationship. When I was a little boy and I had a girlfriend, she couldn't spend her money. And sometimes she had more than me. But when all my money was done that I spent for both of us to have an ice cream from the ice cream parlor or some little thing that we would do, I would not let her spend her money on me, because a real man don't let a woman take care of him. Can no woman love a man that she's taken care of? You become her child. Her voice is stronger than yours in the house, so don't even try to boss her around, because she the boss, and she knows it even if she don't say it. This bum, he don't have a job.
Mister, you ain't never lie.
I ain't never lied.
Listen, I'm so glad it's coming from you.
But my sister, this is real.
Yeah.
That's the kind of man I wanted to be. I told my wife when we were just girl and boyfriend, I don't ever want no man coming to my house taking my furniture. So I wouldn't buy it if I couldn't afford it. I saved my money, and when I could afford it, I bought it because I know it was mine. I wasn't paying on time, and if I missed it, you gonna come and get it? I bought a car one time, and I missed 3 payments because it was hard times. And the white man said he was coming to get it. I went right in his office. I said, I'm not going to let you take advantage of a hard time that I have. I'm not a thief. I will pay you. But if you come to get that car, I'll burn the car to the ground. No, I'm not joking.
Wow.
I told him I'll kill you. He knew I wasn't playing. See, crazy niggas are the ones that they don't bother too much. What?
Well.
and Kenny Gamble, Lukeman, asked me, his school was having, what do you call it, class reunion, and he wanted to bring me there to speak, and he gave me $5,000 for the speech. And I went right to that man that I owed. I said, here's your money. God favors you when you're willing to die for something.
That's right. Yes, sir.
I bought a gun. My teacher didn't teach me this. But in the day when my teacher was gone, I came a little crazy, And I bought a gun for my wife, and I bought a gun for me. We lived in a neighborhood that was kind of like when you get a place and you don't really understand your surroundings. They didn't want no black folk in there, but there was 1 or 2 hanging around. So they came and threw bottle in my window, and my little granddaughter was sleeping on the floor. I got my pistol, and I went looking for him. And then I decided to go right to the police station. See, there's something about this man Elijah, that when you know him, he takes fear out of you. When you know yourself and you know God, you're not a weak, spineless, punctified man. So I went in the police station and asked for the chief, whoever was the head of that. I said, sir, I went out a few days ago and I bought 2 guns, one for my wife and one for me. I said, now you all know how to make examples of little black children that are doing something wrong, but you don't know how to do that for your own, but I do. So the next little white boy that comes throwing something in my window, I'm gonna put a bullet in his you-know-what. They said, Farrakhan, if you do it, we'll come after you. I said, you'll just have to do that. I ain't never seen them white people. Ain't nobody ever throw no more stuff in my window. There comes a time in your life when you can't take no more. That's the time you decide it's either life or death, but tyranny has to cease. That's the time we're living in now. No more Trayvon Martin. No more Tamir Rice. No more Eric Garner, because that's always going to be until we decide.
Yes.
That must end. And when you decide that it will end, because then you're ready to pay whatever the price is to bring it to an end. May God bless us. You got one more question? Or that's it? It's time.
It's time.
Well, I thank you, my dear sister.
Thank you.
Thank you for your spirit, for the beauty of your heart and your questions. And to your audience, I thank you for listening. And I pray that the passion out of which I speak did not frighten you, but strengthened you. Justice is come now. So our exercise of demanding something from the government is just giving them a last chance to do what's right. But after we make that demand, death will be on the horizon for the wicked. Thank you for listening. I greet you in peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
Revolution will not be televised,
Justice
brother.
or else.
There will be no pictures of you and Willie Mae pushing that shopping cart down the block on the dead run or trying to slide that color TV into a stolen ambulance. NBC will not be able to predict the winner at 8:32 on reports from 29 districts. The revolution will not be televised. There will be no pictures of pigs shooting down brothers on the instant replay. There will be no pictures of Whitney Young being run out.